beautiful souls. It's Robin, and you're listening to the Live Life Balance podcast. I'm so excited that you dropped by today, prioritizing you and your wellness. This podcast is for my empty nester mamas, women who are getting close to this new chapter, who have dipped one toe in, or who are fully embracing this new phase. This is for the mamas who are ready to take back their health, to live their best lives. If you're looking for an authentic, supportive community, you're definitely in the right place. It's a space for us to learn how to prioritize ourselves again. I'll be your guide, pointing you to ideas and tools that you can experiment with to see what feels good for you. You'll also hear guests talking about their journeys and what's worked for them. Together, we're going to learn how to use the 1% shift method to create little shifts and habits that, who knows, maybe become your non-negotiables to feel your best. By feeling our best, we can show up in our purpose and live the most joyful life, even in the challenging times. And boy, this new chapter can seem challenging, but I can assure you we're not alone. Some of the topics we're going to talk about are self-love, self-care, nutrition, daily toxins, food swaps, mindset, and reframing our thoughts. I hope you leave each time feeling a little more empowered and at ease to take a step or two that will allow you to shine. Are you ready? If you said yes, take a nice deep breath and say, I am ready. Now let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to a new episode. Today we're going to be talking with Karen, who is an educator and a coach for all things juicing and plant-based. She suffered in her body for years with multiple chronic health conditions that popped up in her mid-30s, and all she was offered as a solution by doctors and specialists were endless rounds of antibiotics that never solved any of her issues. In 2018, at the age of 38, she decided to ditch the pills and hired a coach to help her transition to a fully plant-based diet. It only took about a month for all of her miserable chronic issues, such as daily stomach aches, bloating, hives, painful inflammation, and acne, to clear up completely. Juicing was a big part of that healing. No matter what your diet consists of, juicing can provide a wealth of benefits and elevate your experience in life. We all deserve to feel good in our bodies. If you want to heal your digestion and have glowing skin, juicing's for you. There are healing waters hidden in fresh fruits, leafy greens, and vegetables. When you drink pressed juice, you are receiving vitamins, deep hydration, and trace minerals from that source. Karen loves helping others find their way with plant-based eating, and she encourages everyone, plant-based or not, to incorporate juicing into their lives. I had Karen on season 1, episode 7, where we talked about plant-based, but I wanted to have her back on to talk all things juicing. So if you're someone who is interested in or who juices, this would be the episode for you. So let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am really excited today to have Karen back on, and we kind of left off months ago when we talked first, and we just kind of dipped our toes into juicing, and I wanted to have her back on so that we could really dive deep into this subject because I get a lot of questions about it. I'm not an expert in it. I do it. I do love it. I know the benefits for myself, but I wanted to have Karen on because living a vegan lifestyle, juicing is a major part of, some of the things, whether she's vegan or not. It's just one thing that she finds important in her life. And so we're just going to kind of get into it and just start with the basics. So if you're new to juicing, this will be your first little, knowledge. If you're somebody who already juices, it might fill in some pieces that you didn't know or that you've been wondering about. So welcome, Karen. How are you today?
I'm doing great. So happy to be back on.
Yay. So let's just kind of get into it. How did you, aside from like when you went vegan, were you already juicing before that, or was that kind of part of that journey for you?
Yeah, so I had a juicer already, and I'd had it for several years. And I'd been making apple celery carrot juice, but like very sporadically. Like not even I would say I was very inconsistent. Like sometimes I would go months and not do it.
Okay.
So it wasn't part of like my daily life or anything. And then in 2018, when I had been struggling with chronic illness and all kinds of issues, and I decided I wanted to try plant-based. So I hired a coach who she specifically helped people transition into plant-based. And juicing, like daily juicing, was part of that coaching. And it was such a powerful, powerful thing. So I healed completely from all the bad issues. And I've kept on juicing, and yeah. So that's kind of how I got into it. So I had very, very little experience or knowledge before. I thought it was delicious, and I could feel it like in my body. I used to juice with my mom sometimes. Um, but it wasn't a regular everyday thing until I transitioned into a fully plant-based diet.
I love that. Sometimes we just need to be exposed and create new habits, right? And so that coach not only helped you to live a different lifestyle as far as like vegan eating, but also really introduced you to like juicing being part of your life. And if you don't mind telling the audience, like, a couple of basic benefits to juicing that you have found personally or that's in literature, just so they're aware, because I think knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my personal experience, and also when I was in that coaching, um, I was in a group of about 50 women, and the experiences that I'll share that I had personally, all these other women shared the same experiences.
That's good.
Yeah. So one of the big things is it is extraordinarily healing for your digestion. So when you extract the healing waters out of the produce, the fruits and vegetables and greens, and when you take that in, it's much like if you take a shot of alcohol of liquor, it's quickly absorbed into your body. It's the same type of thing. So you quickly absorb it, and it is vitamins and deep hydration and minerals straight from the source, and it is extraordinarily healing for your stomach, for your gut, and for your digestion. And related to that is your skin. So I used to struggle with my skin. And as soon as I incorporate, I mean, eating plant-based is also a big part of that. And I don't ever eat dairy. That's another really big inflammatory food that can affect your skin. But juicing specifically, it makes my skin literally glow. Like I'm in my 40s. I know what it was like to look in the mirror and have like wrecked skin. So I'm extremely grateful for that benefit. But it's related to your digestion. So it is deeply hydrating. Um, and when you're receiving juice, you're receiving all these things straight from the source. So, like if you were to purchase a very high quality vitamin or one of those, like a powder mix, like a green powder mix, and some of those are very high quality.
Some are
But
not.
yeah, that's true. Some are definitely not. Um, but you're getting it from the source. It's not been processed. So yeah, skin is a big one. And if I, say life happens and I get off track a little bit and I haven't juiced for a couple of weeks, I may not be feeling terrible or anything, but when I get back into it, I mean, it's not even 6 hours probably, and I'm like, my skin feels so much better.
Right.
It's like from the inside out. It
Yeah.
also is very energy giving.
Mm.
Um,
It's true because you get the
so
straight shot of, I do find, personally, I do find that. I find when I juice, I feel it. I mean, within the hour, I feel something very different. It's hard to explain, really, to put into words, but I just feel like I've gotten a very big dose of something good.
yes,
Yeah,
it's
it's very
clearing for your
interesting.
mind as well. Everything we take in, everything you consume, like your physical body, your mental body, and your emotional body, they're all connected to each other. And so I found that it's transitioning into plant-based, and then juicing specifically, like, if something's going on, or I just wake up in a bad mood, or something like
Mhm.
that, I can definitely make a juice and elevate my mood.
Mhm.
You're taking in living cells, and so it like the effect is your body, literally your cells will vibrate at a more rapid rate. So it raises your vibration.
Vibration, yeah. So a couple of things I want to point out that I think are really important. Obviously, we can hear that there are many benefits. I don't really know why there wouldn't be any benefits for anybody in particular. However, I also want to say you don't have to be vegan to juice. Okay. If your choice of eating is not vegan, you can still have a very good juice practice. I also really love that you said sometimes you get off track, right? Because we're all human and we all have human experiences and we get off track sometimes, and it's called a dip. And the coolest thing about a dip, and I will say this over and over and over, is the more you live healthy, when you have those dips, you're able to come back up quicker, but you're able to understand. For me, like, I always use my yoga mat. So it's like if I get off track and I'm not doing my morning practice, or I haven't done yoga or whatever, as soon as I sit on that mat, my body is conditioned at this point. It just calms down. Like, it is just a place. And so it's the same thing with different foods. It's like when your body receives what it needs, it calms. Like, and so the reality, though, is life happens sometimes and we do get off track, but that doesn't mean when you get off track to stay off track. It means hop back on, you'll hop back on faster, and then you'll remember the feelings that you get from whatever it is, whether it is juicing, whether it is an exercise practice, whether it is meditation, whatever it is. So again, just giving yourself grace. But I love that you radically changed your life, but you still are human and you still have human experiences. And,
Absolutely.
And it's not, I think people view other people as like, oh, they do this all the time. And I'll give you an example. I had gone out to dinner with a couple of friends, and I said something about a chocolate cake at this restaurant that we were talking about. And it was like they were shocked that I ate chocolate cake, and I was just like, well, I am, it's like, no, I don't eat it every day. And no, but it's like, yep, I do have chocolate cake sometimes. So it's very interesting, the perception that people have of different things. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, along with that is if I'm getting off track with juicing, or with anything really, I know I don't ever get in a place of fear that I'm gonna stay off track. Like
right.
I know that I'm gonna do it again. Like especially once you experience the benefits, like once you do it for a little while, if you get off track, it's still part of your life. Even though I didn't do it today or the last few days have been kind of nuts or whatever, I just didn't feel like it. I exactly what you're saying. I know that I'm not going to stay off track. And so I don't, it makes the biggest difference to already know, like, well, I'm still doing this. I just didn't do it today.
Exactly. And, we're going to talk a little bit later about some recipes and then some things, ones that are kind of good for your immune system. More so, they will hit a little bit harder. But first, let's talk about the different juicers. I know you said there's 2 types. So could you go just into detail about that a little bit?
Yeah. And actually, there are 3 types. There's 2 types that I've used, and then there's a newer one that I've never used before. It looks awesome, but so the two main types are centrifuge and masticating. So centrifuge is the juicer that I started with. It's a great place to start. It is a round disc with little bitty blades on it, and it spins at a very rapid pace. It's a very loud juicer. But when you push the juice through, it cuts
like
the pulp and that's how it separates out the waters inside. So that's a centrifuge. It uses blades and it cuts it out at a rapid speed. So a press, a masticating juicer is a press. So that's what I currently use. I've had it for the last 5 years. I use an Omega, which I highly recommend. Their brand is fantastic. It's quiet. And it has an auger in it. So it looks like a corkscrew. And when you send your produce and your greens and stuff through, it's called a slow masticating juicer, and it slowly presses. So, I mean, it's not super slow. It doesn't take like your whole day to do it. But it's a press. And so I recommend and there can be price differences, but now, there's a lot of other options. Like the Omega the one that I use is about $300. The one that I started with was about $60. And I actually do have another press that is at my cabin that's a much smaller, and I believe it was less than $100. So, whenever you're picking one out, obviously price is gonna, that can be definitely a factor. But and then the third one, so there's Nama has this, and also Omega just came out with one. They call it a batch juicer, and it is still a slow masticating, so it's a slow press, but it has a great big, like you can put a whole apple in there instead of like I cut mine up really small. So it would be like a time saver sort of. It juices more at once. So I
Okay.
don't have personal experience with that one. But the two main kinds are you're going to cut the produce to separate the waters out, or you're going
I'm
to
gonna press it.
press.
Okay.
And one more thing on that is I found with my personal experience with my juicers is that the press, you get a little bit more juice out. So
Mhm.
especially with leafy greens,
Okay.
you get a little bit more. That is in the centrifuge where I started. Whenever I went into my plant-based coaching, that's the juicer that I use, and I still got the huge transformation in my body. I got all the benefits. So neither they're both wonderful choices.
Okay.
And I recommend a press over the centrifuge, but they're
I
both
think
great choices.
I think I actually have both now that you've described them. I do use the press more. The other one I think is a little rougher to clean for me. It just takes more time. But if I'm doing a large batch for multiple people, I usually bring that one out because I feel like you can do a lot more quicker. At least the one I have just is a bigger form, and the press one that I have is a little bit slower, but it's smaller, so it takes a little bit longer. Again, it's easier to clean though, so I use the one that's easier to clean most of the time.
Yeah.
But it's good to know the difference, and so I guess I've been using pressed, so good for me.
Well, and there's so many options now. I mean, I've been using my same juicer for
Hmm.
more than 5 years, like five
Right.
and a half years.
Well, that's
And
good to
so
know.
there's a lot. Oh yeah, the Omega is top notch quality. I very, very highly recommend their brand.
Yeah. It kind of, I think if you're just getting started and you don't know that it's something that is going to be long term for your lifestyle, because maybe it's not. I'm not going to say everybody it's going to work for everyone, but it could work for everybody. But if it's not your jam, it's not your jam. But I do think if it is and you are going to use it long term, the investment is there. But if you're not quite sure, then start with something a little less. I mean, and I'll give an example. Like I started with the NutriBullet when I first started like doing smoothies and making baby food and all of that. And now I have a Vitamix because to me, the investment was great. And we use it daily doing different things. It makes soup, it does a bunch of things. But so again, I didn't start with that purchase because I needed to see if I would use and if I really was going to get into that and all of that. So I think starting where you are is fine and then building from there. Don't feel
Yes,
like you have to go
yes.
out and buy a $500 item or $300 item if you're not sure, because we don't want it sitting on your shelf doing nothing. Okay, so we're going to talk just for a little bit on the like being mindful of like the pasteurized versus if you could just talk just a tiny bit about
Yes.
fresh and all of that, just to give
Hmm.
some people a beginning understanding, and then people can do their deep dive, if they're
Yes.
more curious.
So when you have a fresh pressed juice, it is unpasteurized. And if you go to the grocery store and you buy like, a carton of juice, the same thing, the same kind of thing that's been there forever, it is pasteurized. So I don't know scientifically the exact process of that. I do know that for unpasteurized, if you are pregnant or if you are in certain types of cancer treatments, it's something to be aware of and ask your doctor about. Um, but the pasteurized juices, if you go to the store and you buy pasteurized, box juices, they've been sitting on the shelf and all that, and you try that as juicing, you're not going to receive the same kind of benefits as because when you make a juice, it's raw.
Okay.
So yeah, I won't go into any more about pasteurized or not because I don't 100% understand like the whole process. But yeah, just be aware.
Okay. And I think, again, any kind of information that comes out of this podcast is informational, educational. It is to give you some information to kind of get started on your search. But if you are someone who is ill, has an illness, is pregnant, has some kind of a condition, we always say check with your provider. And then if you have a holistic or an integrative person, I would check there too, because sometimes their philosophies are a little different.
Sure, yeah. This is not medical advice.
Correct, exactly. All right, let's talk about organic versus non-organic when you're juicing, because I think that's pretty important.
Yes, that is
People to
very
understand.
important. So I try not to send anything through my juicer that is not organic. And the reason is because, whenever you juice something and you're extracting out all these healing waters, it's like an incredible straight shot of these vitamins and minerals. from the source, you do not want a straight shot of pesticides to get inside of your body. So, and a big one I'll use as an example are lemons. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and I use lemons like pretty much every day. I make hot lemon water, and sometimes organic is not available. So what I would do in that situation is still wash my lemon, and then cut it up into slices. And instead of putting the slice through my juicer, I'll just squeeze the lemon in
Okay.
instead. And then also, depending on what type of juicer you have, what kind you decide to get, my centrifuge, you cannot put lemon peel in there, but the press you can. So that's another
Okay.
thing too. It's not really related to organic, but um, yeah, you don't want a straight shot of pesticides. That's going to have the opposite effect of what you're trying to achieve with this new wonderful, incredible practice. So if organic is not available for you, then just be very, very mindful of washing everything. And you can definitely do your best. And I
Remove
try to
the
get,
peel. If it's not
yes,
organic, I
remove the
always
pit.
recommend remove the peel because that
I
takes a layer.
definitely agree. Yes. So yeah, just be very mindful about washing it. And then, I understand that organic can be a little more expensive, but in my opinion, if it's leafy greens or, fruit or vegetables, especially if it's going through the juicer, it is worth it. And then maybe some other areas of the grocery store, if I'm going to cook it, if my budget is really tight, maybe I won't get organic in those items and still be extremely mindful about washing them. But definitely I recommend if you're going to send it through the juicer, if it's possible, definitely get organic.
And just on a side note, if you are like really into it and you do juice, if not daily, several times a week, that's where like your both like BJ's, Costco, Sam's, that's really good to go and buy that because you can get a bigger quantity for less money, if you will. We were talking the other day, my daughter and her friend were juicing, and I was having them make up recipes, whatever. And, they were like, wow, you don't really, it squishes down. You don't get a whole lot, right? And I said, well, if you think about it though, if you put one orange in, you're getting the vitamins from one whole orange in that it's concentrated, right? It's a
Yes.
concentrate. So you can't think giant. And when you go somewhere, if you're getting a giant juice, you have to kind of wonder, is water being added to it? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you make your own, you will see the difference, and also the thing I love to point out is like people who have a glass of orange juice in the morning that is not juiced, that is, from the grocery store, even organic, you're having an 8 ounce. I would like for you to put a 4 8 ounce cup of orange juice in a glass and then juice even 2 or 3 oranges and see how much you actually get, because that's a straight shot, but it also shows you that other ones really, there's a lot of sugar when we're talking about that.
Yes.
And so I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I know there's a big fear that our society has created around eating fruits without, eating fruits in general sometimes, but, if eating it without, a protein or without, massive fiber to cut that. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit on the differences there.
Yeah, yes. So, when you juice yourself or versus buying something at the store, you are going to notice a huge difference in the quality of what you are receiving. Um, and I'm a plant-based health coach, and juicing is part of coaching. It's part of what I, talk with people about, and get them into the practice of doing. And there is this big fear of fruit. And I think it's the silliest thing in the world, but I get it, and I understand where it came from, especially, 20 or more years ago, like Atkins was the biggest thing, and people will do like no carb diets and all this stuff. And what I have to say about that is when you eat fruit, it is not the same as eating, like a donut or some other kind of sugary,
Processed.
like Sour Patch Kids or, things like that. It is not the same kind of sugar, and it is healing. Now, I don't recommend just going on a fruit diet or
Right.
anything like that.
Right.
But the quality is very different. The quality of the sugar is very, very different. So, I try to help people get over this fear they have of fruit. And, I don't personally struggle with, I don't have like a sweet tooth necessarily. Like I've never had a hard time with that. But a lot of people do. So when your palate changes
Mm-hmm.
as you go,
Your specific. Right.
through. But if I want fruit, like grapes are my favorite. I love grapes. But if I'm craving like some kind of a fruit, I never ever deprive myself of that. I just think there's a lot of things that go on in the mind because of society and what we've been conditioned to believe about things. And sometimes they're just not true. So,
And I also think
yeah.
everybody's very bio-individual. And so what happens to one person's body based off of their health, their non-health, their food intake, all of those things make different things happen within each person's body. So that's the other big thing to note is that when you juice, you're not doing a 20-ounce juice. You're doing a smaller version. So you're not going to get that. Now, if you go out and you get a juice, there's lots of factors of what that might bring, which you're out of control in that. So you might get a spike because you don't know exactly what's been put in it. You don't know the quality. You don't know how much, do they add water? Don't they add water? So again, if you are someone who has a health condition, do it at home because you can monitor it. You know what's going on. And that I think that's the main difference. And you can correct me if this is wrong between juicing and smoothies is within the smoothie, you do get the fiber, and in the juice. And again, I was explaining to my daughter the other day, it's like you juice to get the straight shot of the minerals, the straight shot of the hydration, and the straight shot of the vitamins. And it is not a meal replacement. It is not something that you're going to just drink juices all day long and have nothing else to eat. And a smoothie, I know some people do them as replacements, but I still I like real like a plate of food. To me, it's just my personal preference. But when you're doing that, you are building in protein and fat and fiber and other things to balance it. So that's the main difference I find between the two. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about fiber because that's
Sure.
that's another big one that I get. They're like, well, but I'm not getting any fiber, or they're like, you're not getting any fiber. How is that helpful? So when you juice, there's a shoot that comes out there, and all of the fibrous material that's not liquid gets separated out.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, so the way I look at juice is it is an addition to everything else that I eat. It's like delicious medicine is how I look at it for my
Yeah.
personal body. And my diet is full of fiber. I have salads and all kinds of things that are loaded with fiber. So I don't feel bad at all about discarding that. And if you do want to use the pulp that is left over from juicing, there's a wealth of recipes on Pinterest and different places. Some people make crackers. You can make muffins. I know Robin was saying she used it in stir fry, and it was really it was good. If you have chickens or any livestock, you can give it to them. You can have it. You can add it to your food compost. But that worrying about, well, I'm removing all the fiber, that should definitely not stop you. That maybe kind of change your mind about it.
Reframe the way you look at it. It's an
Yeah,
addition. It's not instead of. Um,
yeah. And another thing too, along with what Robin was saying about, if you experience a spike in your blood and or whatever you think is happening, we've been told so many things at, as part of society that
mhm.
some of them are just not true. And so if you kind of remove yourself from that a little bit and instead of listening to all that noise, make yourself, go make yourself a juice, like make it a practice for a little while, and then just listen to your body instead of listening to everybody else and see
Right.
how you actually feel.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And I think if you are juicing, like, and I do this with clients, even which is like with eating a meal, it's like, how do you feel 90 minutes later? That's the true test. Like, how do you feel? And I think we have forgotten that our bodies actually are super wise and they will talk to us, whether it's through good feelings or bad feelings or showing up as acne or not, or, there's bloating and all, I mean, our bodies are talking to us. We just haven't been taught that that's what that actually is. We just been taught that that's an illness or that's a this or that's a that. It's like, yeah, but what is your body saying? So I think a good rule of thumb is when you're eating anything, including having a juice, what do you feel like an hour to 90 minutes later? And that will give you a big clue. Are you energized? Are you lacking? Do you feel sick? There's a lot of different things. So get curious, and that helps you to get in tune also with your body. And I think that's super important as a life, like general rule of thumb. We really need to learn how to tune into ourselves.
Okay, so being careful in the beginning. Juicing is very powerful. It is a very powerful healing practice for your body, and it also can be very powerful in detoxing. So one thing that I really want to warn people about is these fad cleanses. Like if you've been eating however it is that you eat, and
That's right.
so if you go straight into a juice cleanse, like 8 juices a day, you're like, you're gonna shock your body. You're liable to wind up with your head in the toilet. And you're gonna feel very miserable. There is absolutely no reason to shock your body like that. I think it's very unhealthy. And
Counterintuitive.
these juice cleanses, these fads, they're all over the place. And I'll use an example. Somebody came to me for help. This has been a few years ago, and she reached out and she was just like, oh, I just started this juice cleanse today, and I'm already sick. Like she'd already had her head in the toilet. And I said, well, send it over to me. Oh my God. She had jumped straight into, it was literally 8 juices a day. So she had had her 3rd juice before noon, and it contained very highly detoxifying ingredients such as dandelion greens and ginger.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the worst idea. Like she was miserable. And then immediately was just like, juicing's terrible. So
right.
I think a good way to look at it is you have to respect the power of what you're of the juice. So when you're very first starting, I would recommend, and we'll talk about a little bit, we're going to get into recipes and how to make it taste good and all that kind of stuff. But I would recommend, don't do more than 1 a day. And mine are like 12 ounces. I use like a mason jar. Um, and if it's strong, or if you feel like it's a little strong, you can even have one like throughout the day. You don't have to drink it all at once even. But you really don't want to shock your body. You really don't. You don't want to detox too quickly. It is not helpful at all. Juicing really it's very powerful to help you eliminate toxins that you do need to eliminate, but there's absolutely no reason to make yourself sick. You just have to have a respect for how powerful, it is and it can be.
Yeah. And I think starting basic is always a wise idea.
Yes, you're still going to receive immediate benefits. You're still going to immediately start healing, but you don't have to shock yourself.
Right. I personally, I love a good juice, but I love, an immunity boosting juice. I mean, that's my thought process is if I'm going to juice, I want it to have some immune. And I love ginger, I love turmeric, and I would never make a juice and not add those things. For me personally, some people can't hack ginger at the beginning because they don't, and I probably didn't need ginger at the beginning either. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, but I actually like that taste.
The bite.
Like the burn, I guess. I don't know what it is. And I've also been sick enough or like on the verge of getting sick, and I'll either pop a few garlic bulbs or, I will juice a couple of, strong juice, like shots. I don't do like a full, like whole glass of that, but I would do like a couple of shots. The other thing I did see, which I can't remember if it was you that told me, if I saw it in a recipe or something, but people sometimes juice and add that to a soup. So they might juice garlic, They might juice, is that you? Okay. And I did try that a couple of times, and that was pretty cool. Just out of curiosity, I tried it, and it definitely gives it a very powerful taste, because you're literally just getting the straight shot. So
usually if I juice for a soup, I haven't done it in a while, I need to do it again. Celery and carrot and onion are like some of my favorites, my go-tos for that. And with ginger, Usually when I take in ginger, I'll dice it up really small and like add it on my salads and stuff. Like I'm definitely one of those people that I don't put it in my juices because I don't love that taste,
Okay.
but it's so good for you. I recommend it. I absolutely recommend it. And I've juiced ginger for soup as well, make like a
Mhm.
really
Yep.
wonderful healing broth. And then garlic, actually, some of my juice recipes that I drink, I definitely love to juice garlic. I know it
That's
sounds
interesting.
completely crazy. And especially if there's lemon in it as
Mhm.
well. I'm a big fan. I'm a huge
All
fan.
right. So if somebody is a beginner,
Hmm.
I mean, we're going to list some recipes and stuff in the show notes, but just maybe give two recipes that somebody beginning could be like, okay, I think that might be okay. Like I might be able to try
Yes.
that.
Yes. So apple, celery, carrot, I very highly recommend. Celery is fantastic. It's very trendy to have
Detox.
just celery juice. Like there's a
Hmm.
lot of people that are, like only celery. I don't do that simply because I don't enjoy it. And
Hmm.
I also feel like different fruits and vegetables and leafy greens have different healing properties in them. They have different
Sure.
vitamins, they have different minerals. And I think that getting that variety is
Hmm.
more important.
Okay.
But celery's incredible. It's got naturally occurring sodium. It's very powerful anti-inflammatory. And I think it tastes great mixed with other things. So apple, celery, carrot, I would say is one. And then the other one, I would call this my staple. I probably have it more than any other juice, and it's apple, celery, cucumber, lemon, and kale. And kale could also be spinach or romaine.
Hmm.
You can do either of those. I get whatever looks the freshest. And if and I wouldn't and when you're making it, especially for the first time, whenever you're making juice, taste it, see how it is. If it's way too bitter, you can add more apple, or if you have grapes, you could like throw a handful of grapes in there. But yeah, apple, celery, cucumber, lemon, kale is a really good one.
And I don't peel my apples. Because I use organic. I use usually the green ones, and I like that.
I don't peel anything.
Yeah, I don't. I
And
was
so
okay.
with
Okay.
apples, if there's a sticker on there, y'all, that drives
Yeah.
me crazy. It drives me completely crazy. But I'll cut it off. I just like take my knife and
No,
slice the whole
slice it.
piece
Yeah.
off. Um, And it depending on what kind of juicer that you get, like if you got the big batch juicer, you can wash it and literally toss in the
Throw
whole
it in.
apple. But
Yeah.
mine, the Omega, the shoots are pretty small, so I
Like,
just chop it up. But I juice the core, the seeds,
oh,
everything. And
okay.
with lemon, with as long as it's organic, my juicer, you can put lemon peel through. It doesn't make it bitter or anything like that. And I will say with oranges, make sure that you peel unless you love bitter. Make sure you peel an orange because it will make it very bitter.
That's interesting because I have oh, you know what? I do peel it. I was just thinking, do I peel my oranges? But yes, I do peel my oranges. Sometimes I peel my cucumbers and sometimes I don't.
I
Or
never
I
peel
give it
my cucumbers.
sometimes I give it like a rough if I'm just sort of
Yeah.
like kind of chopping. Ginger, I'll just cut off like the edges and then I just
Uh-huh.
shoot that right in. My favorite go-to is carrot, ginger, cucumber, lemon or lime,
Uh-huh.
um, turmeric. I like fresh turmeric, and then I'll sprinkle cayenne pepper.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, that sounds
did I
good.
say cucumber and cucumber? And then and sometimes I do celery, not every day because celery does have a bite to me. I definitely do not enjoy it, and that's the other thing. Like this is not intended to be like a punishment where you're going to drink something that tastes gross, And
No,
so
in fact, I don't ever do that. Like
yeah, it's like if it's not enjoyable, then you're not going to stick with that anyways, and it's gross. So celery, I like when it is combined with cucumber. The cucumber to me cuts some of the celery bitterness or something, I
uh-huh.
guess. So I do like those together. Carrot, I love, but I also really love just a green, which is grassy and earthy tasting, but I like it. I like to do, let's see, like kale or spinach. I will do celery in that. I will do a lemon in it. And then, of course, ginger, but it's very greeny, earthy.
Yeah.
It's
And I
not a
also
fan
do
favorite. for sure.
And we'll talk about later where you can find me, but my Instagram is packed full of juice recipes.
Great.
I've
Perfect.
like on my story highlights, you can click and I've got all kinds of them. I juice all kinds of things. I make some that, they're not necessarily the same thing as like a V8, but it's more like that kind of a
Have you ever
vegetable
juiced
flavor.
tomatoes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm interested.
Hmm.
I haven't really,
Yes.
because I have, like, obviously, I
I do
never thought of like
tomatoes.
tomato juice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna try
really
that.
enjoy doing I get sweet peppers, like little colorful ones, like
Uh-huh.
red, orange, and yellow. Um, so sometimes I'll make a juice like and when the staple one I was talking about,
Mhm.
apple, celery, cucumber, lemon, kale, sometimes I will use those ingredients and then add on to it. Like I'll add on carrot and a little bit of pepper and some garlic or um, I'll add different things on.
I wanted to talk about the palate because if you're somebody who's never juiced and you really eat a refined processed diet,
Hmm.
start with the basic because your palate will receive that a little bit better and then sort of start working your way as your palate changes so that again it is enjoyable. It's supposed to be an enjoyable experience. Um, because that is more healing when you are enjoying something.
Yes, and yeah, and if you do, so another thing too, and not if, but like when you make one and it's way too strong, because it'll happen. You
Happen.
have to
Sure.
learn. It's trial and error.
Sure.
Um, and I kind of mentioned this before, but maybe separate it out, like split it in half if it's way too strong, and then juice some apples or maybe some grapes or something like that, and or pears are really good to juice as well.
Sometimes
And
they'll
you
do
sweeten it up, and lemon
coconut,
helps too.
like coconut water. Like I get a pure
Oh
coconut
yeah,
water. So sometimes I'll cut it if it's like way, like it just did too much of
like way
something.
too strong. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, well, I got to fix this so at least I can enjoy it. So I'll usually just add some coconut water
Yeah,
to
it
it.
should be an enjoyable experience. Absolutely. It should taste
So
good
I
and
think,
be
yeah, I think, for people who are just getting started, this is a great tipping off point. If you are interested in really, deep diving into more of a juicing lifestyle and you want to include vegan eating and learning that, I don't eat completely vegan, but I like vegan. And I think that, if you've never dabbled in having like meatless meals, don't necessarily flip completely at the beginning, but try it out, try, because I think again, the more you start to educate and learn, the biggest thing I get is the protein. You can get protein. I promise you, you can get protein
I've been doing
eating
this for
vegan.
5.5 years. I have
And you're
not withered away.
right.
My
So,
all of my health improved, and I've
right.
got
But
a
some
physical.
people, some people can hack meat and some people can't. And it's a bio individual thing. And so if you're like curious and you just want to try it out, because I think you got to experiment to know what's the best for you personally. Karen's definitely your girl. So I will definitely drop all of her show note or information into the show notes along with some recipes. But before we kind of segue out of today's conversation, because I know you'll be back on for sure. I did want to just touch on vegan eating for just a second. And really this goes for juicing too, or any type of a lifestyle you're creating. Not all lifestyles are the same. So if you are someone who is going to want to dip their toes into, trying vegan foods, real food matters. And so there was this documentary on, and Karen and I were speaking of it. It's on Netflix, and it is to show people that, vegan eating, it was twins. One did vegan, one did carnivore. They don't really showcase what exactly they're eating. So I think that was a questionable thing. Not that I don't believe the actual results, but I feel like what was the quality of the foods. I think I would need to see that scientifically. But also, the sponsor of the show was a processed vegan company. And when I say processed, I'm huge on ingredients. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm not going to say the company. What I am going to say is read your ingredients. If you are going to be doing vegan stuff, you still want whole foods. And if you go to the section and everything's marketed, this is vegan, this is gluten-free, this is da da da, read your ingredients, because that is just simply sometimes not for face value. It might be vegan, but it might be vegan packed with processed junk that is really not going to be any more beneficial than you going and having a Big Mac. So
Yeah.
really, talk to like your knowledge around it, because I know you had an experience with this and I think it's important for people to understand.
Yeah. Um, you know, when I first tried, so back in 2018, I had been struggling with all these chronic health conditions, and the doctors kept giving me antibiotics over and over and over. And I decided, like, this is completely unsustainable. I don't want to do this anymore. And I felt very pulled and drawn to plant-based diet, but I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And so I was eating a lot of processed stuff. I was having like canned soup, and I would go to the freezer section and look for what said, whatever. But after doing that for a month or so, I'm like, I still feel like crap. Like I don't feel good at all. And so I hired a plant-based coach specifically to help me, and everything changed immediately. Greenwashing is a big thing.
Oh,
And
huge.
I always read ingredients. Like anytime that I pick up something that is in a package, in a container of any kind, I turn it over and I read it. I have no idea how many calories. I don't know how much fat is in there. I do not care. That's not what I'm looking at. I want to know what is the content. And Robin and I did a really great episode. I believe it's episode 7 in her first season, where we talked in great detail about plant-based. And so if you are thinking about it, then I would definitely check that out. For the most part, what I'm eating is real food that's grown, that comes from the earth, and doesn't go through this huge processing. It doesn't get handled by all these different people and all packaged up and all these things.
Well,
It makes a very big difference. And it also it makes a difference in your wallet too. I know that's
sure.
not here or there with your health. Your health, to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. But again, back to processed, because it's like not all processed food is created equal. So there are some processed foods that are healthy. Again, that's why I say, I don't know. I need to see the ingredients. Once I see the ingredients, I can tell you right off the cuff, yes, no, healthy, not healthy. This is why I wouldn't, it's like, so again, just looking at the front, just start making a conscious effort to turn it over. And if you are juicing, I will say, typically when you're in a market and you are in the fruit and vegetables section, there's not a whole list of ingredients. And if there is, that would be scary, because that stuff should be grown, from the earth. And, the biggest thing would be the pesticides and the spray and that the toxicity of that. So that would be the only thing to really keep in mind when picking produce and or for juicing. We do have to kind of wrap up because I want to respect your time. But before we go, I would like for you to tell, in this new year, okay, because we talked last year or the year before, I think last year, what are some non-negotiables you've created? Did your non-negotiables change? What have you added? So I'm just curious to know what they are for 2024.
You guys, my non-negotiables they're the same. So if I'm gonna name 3, so the very first thing is I always give myself grace every single day. And what I mean by that is, say last night, I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I haven't juiced in a few days. Like tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do all these things. And, I'm feeling all gung ho, and I go to bed and then I get up and I feel completely different. I'm not going to hold myself to force myself to like do, if I'm going to be a little bit disciplined about things, that's one thing. But in general, in life, even if it's in the middle of the day, like if I suddenly, if it's not what I feel in the moment, what I feel is, what I should be doing, like maybe instead I need to go outside and go for a walk. And that's the best thing for me than, spending several hours doing something else that doesn't feel in alignment anymore. So that could apply to anything, not just food, but give myself grace every single day. The second thing is hot lemon water use organic. And I had one this morning, and I don't have one every single morning. My goal is every day, but it's a powerful thing. It's very healing. It's very hydrating. And when you do it first thing in the morning, you can do it any time of day, but you're putting yourself first, right? Mm-hmm. You're doing something for yourself first thing. And it not only is it hydrating, it sets up your digestion for the whole day. It creates an alkaline environment in your body. Not only is it those things, but your mental body is affected when you do something for yourself. So that's my second one. And the third one is have something raw every single day. Juice is raw, but when you eat something that is raw, You are eating cells that are living. What you consume the energy of that. Whether you're watching it on TV, you're consuming that energy. But um, and one good fun example, if you Google an onion under a microscope, that one specifically is really pretty and cool to look at. But the cells are moving around. They're very much alive. So when you consume something raw, you're consuming living cells. And it raises your vibration. It causes your all of your molecules and everything, all of your bodies, your emotional, your physical, and your mental body, they're all affected by these things. So give myself grace, give myself lemon water, and have something raw.
I love that. And if I could just add to the giving something to yourself each morning, it's giving something to yourself each morning that's going to really sustain the health that you're looking for throughout the day. I'm really big into this year, I've really been, I know it's only been a month or two, but really focusing on pausing. And that's my word for the year, but pausing and really having intention around what I'm doing. And I could make lemon water and chug it and go on to doing something else. But I've really been intentional about making either just lemon water or making hot tea and adding lemon to it, and really savoring the moment, because that's my moment for me in the morning before the craziness starts, because life is crazy, right? And so again, I think when we place intention around things that we're doing, and we get more living in the moment rather than I'm doing something good, but I'm also, my brain is over here with the 82 other things I have going on. I think that you receive it differently. Your body receives it differently. So
absolutely.
Just remember,
you can sit in a place of gratitude about it. Just be I'm so grateful for access to these organic lemons and all of that. Absolutely. I'm going to add that to mine.
Yeah, I just think,
Give some time to be mindful and grateful.
Yeah, just pause. When you pause, that there's nowhere else to go, right? If you're pausing, you're having to get present in that moment. So I couldn't have picked a better word. And
I love that.
So anyways, I thank you so much again for coming on. All of your words and your wisdom is really helpful for everybody to grow. And I want to remind you that if you are someone really interested in wanting to go into that vegan lifestyle that includes juicing, Karen is your person. Again, all of her stuff, the recipes that she mentioned, that'll also be in the show notes. And follow her on Instagram, because I think it's important for us, if we are going to be looking at social media, to feed ourselves things that are beneficial for our health and wellness. So if you start following people that can provide some of that, it just retrains your brain as to what you're thinking about mostly. So thank you so much for coming on, and everybody else, I will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Let's break down some of the juicing gems. Number one, types of juicers. We talked about centrifuge and masticating juicers, but remember, it's not just about extracting the juice. It is about finding one that fits your vibes. So go with what aligns with your needs and makes your juicing experience easy. Number two, elevating your vibration. Juicing isn't just a drink. It's kind of like a soul-hugging experience that raises your frequency. Imagine feeling vibrant and positive energy flowing through you with every sip that you take. Number three, organic versus non-organic. Make sure you choose organic, as we emphasize steering clear of the pesticides that come with non-organic produce. Your body deserves the purest nourishment. And number four, benefits of juicing. As we dove into the benefits, we talked about so many. A few of the ones that we talked about were quick absorption of nutrients like vitamins and minerals, improved digestion, glowing skin, deep hydration, and an energy boost. Embrace juicing not just as a trend, but as a celebration of your vibrant well-being that you're trying to create on your wellness journey. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will talk soon. Thanks for tuning in today. I loved being here with you. I hope that you got something from today's episode. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Drop a comment below, and if you feel led to, download the episode and share it with someone you love that needs to hear this message. As we continue to spread the goodness of this podcast, I'd love for you to help us by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or a rate on Spotify. As we increase listeners, we will come up more often when women are searching for podcasts to listen to. To stay connected with me, you can check out my social media pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. You can check out my website at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com. You can book a discovery call. And if you're looking for a way to get started right now, you can opt in for my new quick guide for the empty nester refresh. You can join my waitlist for my new course, It's Your Time, which is going to be launching soon, which I'm super excited about. And as always, thank you for letting me be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you're allowing me to be on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen.